Hey guys, tomorrow we will be taking a test over Unit 2B, which was all about the equations of parallel and perpendicular lines. So today we're going over our review. Up at the top of the review, I have all the forms of the line that you're going to need to know. So there we have our slope formula. Here we have point slope, and it's named that because x1 and y1 represent just any point, and m is our slope. Slope intercept, so again, slope is m, and then intercept is b, and then we have standard form. Okay, and then since we are talking about parallel and perpendicular lines, just to review, parallel lines have the same slope. So in order to tell if two lines are parallel, you're going to need to be able to see the slope, so it's going to need to be in one of those two forms. And then with perpendicular, it needs to be opposite reciprocal. Meaning one is positive and one is negative. That's what opposite is. And then reciprocal means that it flips over. Okay, so we have two columns here. The one on the left was supposed to say examples, so I'm going to change that, examples. Okay, we're going to do all the odd numbers here in this video, and I'm going to leave the even numbers for you guys to practice on your own. If you turn in the review, completed everything, so odds and evens, I'll give you +5 to your test. And if you for some reason need to do a retest, this review is a requirement. Okay, so let's look at number 1. What is the relationship between the given linear equations? So we're going to look at the slope. And looking at all these lines, they're all in this form, y equals mx plus b. Slope is going to be the number that's right in front of that x. So part A, we have y equals 2/3 x plus 5 and y equals -3/2 x minus 1. So our slopes are the numbers that are in front of the x. See how one's positive and one's negative, so that's opposite. And then they are flipped over, they're reciprocals, so these are perpendicular. Okay, part B, I have -2 and -1/2. So they are reciprocals, so 2/1 is 1/2, flipped over, but they're not opposite, they're both negative. So since it's not opposite reciprocals and they're definitely not the same, that makes this one neither. And in part C, 4x plus 1 and 4x minus 2, they're both exactly 4, exactly the same, meaning that these two lines would be parallel. Okay, number 3, determine whether line A and line B are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. So just like number 1, but we need to know the slopes, and they didn't give us slopes. We're going to have to find that on our own. So let's look first at line A. Those 2 points would be x1, y1, x2, y2. And I'm going to use the slope formula that's at the top of this page. So just to keep myself organized, I'm going to write line A. Okay, and I'm finding the slope of line A. y2 minus y1 in the numerator, so that would be -5 minus -6 over 0 minus 4. And today I don't feel like doing the hard work, so I'm just going to type that whole thing into the calculator. So control divide -5 minus -6 over, not 1, 0 minus 4. So -1/4. Okay, and then now we're going to do the same thing to line B. I'm going to label my points x1, y1, x2, y2. So for line B, our slope would be 1 minus -3 over 11 minus 12. And again, I'm just going to type that whole thing into the calculator. 1 minus -3, 11 minus 12. And that gives me -4. So they are reciprocals. 1/4, if you were to flip it over, is 4/1, which is what that one looks like. But they're not opposite, they're both negative. So that would mean that these lines, they cross, but they're not going to be parallel or perpendicular. Okay, number 5, I have another example really similar to that, just different numbers. Okay, so let's start with line A. x1, y1, x2, y2. So the slope of line A would be 19 minus 7 over 9 minus 5. Let me pull up my calculator again. And that gives me just positive 3. Okay, now let's look at line B. x1, y1, x2, y2. So the slope of line B would be 11 minus 8 over negative 3 minus negative 4. Let's throw that into the calculator. Negative 4. And I also get 3. So in this case, they're both exactly the same. No positive, no negative, no flips, just exactly the same, which means that these two lines, should we graph them, would be parallel. Okay, now let's look at the back of the page. Number 7, what is the slope of the line 3x plus 4y equals negative 16? So normally we say the slope is the number in front of x, but that's only when it's in slope-intercept form, and right now it's in standard form. So to remind you, and it's on the front of your page, slope-intercept form is the one that looks like this, y equals mx plus b. And then once we get it to this point, we know that slope is this number. So the thing that I'm noticing between these two is that y should be by itself, and over here, here's y, it has two things with it. So we need to move both of those things. Okay, so if I started by subtracting the 3x from both sides, just be careful here. The 3 has an x, the 16 doesn't, so no combining. We're just going to write them side by side. This will leave me with 4y equals negative 3x and negative 16, just side by side. Okay, so we're closer, but y is still not by itself. There's a 4 in front of it. So let's divide everything by 4, absolutely everything. So then that leaves me with y equals negative 3 over 4x minus 4. That's the equation right here. Those are equivalent, it's just written in different forms. But now that it's written this way, it's clear to see that the slope is the number in front of x. So the slope of that line, I'm going to write m equals negative 3 over 4. Okay, number 9, what is the equation of the line parallel to y equals 1/2 x plus 5 that passes through the point negative 10, 7? Okay, so they want parallel. Parallel means that I'm going to keep the same slope. So you see that equation they gave us? The slope is 1/2. We're going to keep using that as our slope. So I'm going to write it here to the side. M is 1/2. But they wanted to pass through this point, negative 10, 7. So that'll be our x1, y1. And we're going to plug in to point slope form. That's on the front of your page. So point slope form starts with y minus. Then we have y1, which in our problem is 7. Equal sign m, which we're using 1/2. Parentheses x minus x1, which for us is negative 10. So since we're subtracting a negative, I'm going to go ahead and change that to a plus 10, close parentheses. So that would count as an equation. Honestly, you should look at your answer choices, and if they are in point slope form, so I'm going to put PSF, they would look like that. So you might be done. But looking at your answer choices, if they don't look like this, that means that we need to keep simplifying. So I'm going to distribute first. That way we can get rid of those parentheses. And that'll leave me with y minus 7 equals 1/2 x plus 5, because I know half of 10 is 5. And then we're going to add 7 to both sides just to get that y by itself. And now I'm left with y equals 1/2 x plus 12. And then again, from here, you would look at your answer choices, and if they want slope-intercept form, so SIF, you would be done. And honestly, I know what the test looks like, so I know for the most part, they're going to want you to stop here. Okay, number 11. What is the equation of the line that passes through the point 3, 6? So that'll be our x1, y1. And is perpendicular, so we want opposite reciprocal slope, to the line graphed below. So they didn't give us an equation. We're going to have to look here. So that point 3, 6, they actually went ahead and they graphed it for us. So that's cool. We can see the picture. And then I need to find the slope of this line. So if I count, I'm just going to pick 2 points on that line. It has to go perfectly through the corners. So I think right here would be a good point. The y-intercept, again right here. Just pick 2 of them. I'm going to draw a triangle. And it's 3 up and down and 4 across. Now this line, if you remember slope dude, is nice negative. So the slope of this line is negative 3/4. But we want perpendicular to that. So we're not going to keep it the same. We're definitely going to change it to the opposite reciprocal. So the slope that we're going to use for our problem is we're going to make it positive and then flip it over. So 4/3. So let's start with slope or point slope form. Y minus y1, so y minus 6 equals m. Put our 4/3 in place. X minus x1, so put in our 3. So if they want point slope form, you would be done. But we're going to keep going. Let's distribute. So now I have y minus 6 equals 4/3 x minus. So the cool thing about here is those 3's are going to cancel out and it's going to give you 4. But if you didn't know that, just use your calculator. So I'm going to do control divide 4/3, move to the side, and then do times -3. Negative because that's a minus. And see, it gives me -4. So right here, there should be a -4. Okay, and then now I'm going to add 6 to both sides. And that leaves me with y equals 4/3 x plus 2. So that line would be perpendicular to the one that's in the picture. And the good thing about having a picture is you could actually graph it and test to see if it's true. So plus 2 means it goes through here. And then if it has a slope of 4/3, 1, 2, 3, 4 up, 1, 2, 3 across. So see how it's touching that point it needed to? And then you can work backwards. So 4, 3, down 4/3. And it's kind of hard to see because of all my sketching, but yes, those are perpendicular. Okay, number 13. So this is going to be the last one that we do together. What is the equation of the line in standard form? So this one is even telling you, they want you to go all the way to standard form. That is parallel to y equals 3x plus 5. That passes through the point -4, -13. So that point is going to be my x1, y1. And since we're doing parallel, I want the same slope. So we're going to use 3. So starting with point slope form, so I'm going to label as I go. So PSF, y minus -13, so I'm going to turn that to a plus sign, equals m x minus x1, which is -4, so plus. So that's point slope form, but we're not done yet. We're going to keep going. So let's distribute. Y plus 13 equals 3x plus 12. Then we're going to subtract 13 from both sides. Y equals 3x minus 1. So that right there looks like y equals mx plus b. That is slope-intercept form. But again, that's not the form that they want. They want standard, so we're going to keep going. And as a reminder, standard form, so I'm going to actually write it up here. ax plus by equals c. X and y need to be on the same side. So this x here, let's move it over. It's positive right now, so the opposite would be to subtract it. X and y are two different letters. Can't combine them, but we're going to write them side by side. So I had a negative 3x and a positive y, so it's going to be a plus sign, equals negative 1. So x and y are both on the same side, sure, but the one thing about standard is they don't like fractions, which is okay, we don't have any fractions here, but they also don't like the first number to be negative. So we're going to get the whole thing and multiply by negative 1. So that gets distributed to everything. And now I have positive 3x, negative y equals positive 1. That is now standard form. And I know that on our test, we're going to have one question that's like that. You have to start at the beginning. You're going to have to start with point slope form and work your way all the way down to this. Okay, so that's my side of the review. For the rest of the class period, please do the practice questions. So do all the even problems and let me know if you have any questions on any of this stuff that we're doing.